mentioned that you work for Barber Ford, and you probably get a lot of your training working for Mr. Mr. Barber, and went to school to become a leader in the car business. And I've got a picture of here of an old, looks like a mansion. Why don't you tell us about this?
Mr. Barber was a great guy, a hardworking person, and he sent me to Ford called it Dealer Sun Schools, but it was Dealer Merchandising School, and it was training to be a general manager of an auto dealership. And it was held at the estate of Henry Ford. And this picture is a Henry Ford estate, and we our classrooms was in the garage. He had would hold a dozen Model T Fords, I'm sure, in its day, but that was where our classroom was. And a great school. I'm thankful that I had an opportunity to go.
So, what was your when you were in the Ford business? What was the most memorable Ford product that you remember selling?
My first new car sale was a Ford Crestliner, and it was just a customized Ford interior and a beautiful outside paint job of dark bronze with light tan. Just a pretty car. I was very proud of that and enjoyed it a lot, and sold it to a young man whose parents come in with him from Jamestown and bought it and took delivery of it. And that was probably the one I'll never forget from Ford.
Yeah. And was the Mustang, did that come out prior to you getting into business on your own with Pontiac and GMC in 1965?
Yes, it came out, and it just was real popular and cute, and everybody needed one. So all we could get, we could sell. And they had a contest for the sales manager of Ford dealers. And if you won this contest, you got to buy a Mustang at dealer cost and above quota for the dealer. And we won it. And your mother drove that Mustang for several months. And then when we went in business, I turned it in as part of the capitalization of the business. And I think I declared it worth $2,100. Can you imagine that? $2,100 for a brand new Mustang.
And pretty interesting story in terms of, first of all, when you were downtown on 8th Street, the dealership, main dealership was where the Holland Arts Council building is, next to Skiles on 8th Street. But your used car lot was kitty corner, where next to where the Pizza Hut was on Columbia between 8th and 7th. And tell us a little bit about how many cars you used to stock, and who ran the used car department, and who ran the new car department.
Typically, depending upon how late a model the trade-ins were, 20 cars was all I could have financially. If I had 21, I had to quick get rid of one, or I wouldn't be able to meet payroll. So it was tight. And this where the used cars were the Pizza Hut and the old Becker Iron and Metal business was. And it had a little garage and office, and it had a wood stove in it. So we'd fire it up in the morning and in the winter and get it warmed up, and then just let the fire go out for the day. But as far as who was responsible, I was responsible for it all, because there was only 2 salesmen and myself and a couple of technicians. The total employment the first year was 8. 8 of us did the job. And the new car business, I ordered the new cars and kind of took care of it, and was one of the salesmen when everybody else was busy. So it was kind of a jack of all trades.
And then you mentioned Grandpa, your dad, working with you. And did he work in the used car building a little bit, or was he over in the new car showroom? And then you also had your brother-in-law working with you, Stu. And I think he came at a certain time. Maybe he was in the service with Vietnam and came at some point while we were still downtown. Can you tell us a little bit about Grandpa's role and your brother-in-law Stu's role?
Stu came with us for a short time, and then was drafted and spent a good time in Vietnam. Came back, and then he became our new car sales manager, and did a great job. Nice, good person, good values, and did a great job. And then we, in addition to that, then we had a used car manager, Chuck Galus, and Chuck also did a good job. It was a little tough first. Chuck would appraise a car, and they wasn't sure that the salesmen weren't sure that he was right, so they'd still come to me and say, "Do you think that's the right amount for that car?" They weren't ready to listen to anyone other than the old guy himself, but they got used to it, and it all worked out well. And both those guys were with us for a long, long time.
And you also had employee Rob Schwartz, who was with you for a long time. Tell us a little bit about Rob's history. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us today, but he was a part of the Elhart business and family for a lot of years.
Rob came to work with us. At first we had one person taking care of the parts department and writing repair orders. He was a service manager and parts manager. Then as we grew, we invited Rob to come to work with us, and he was parts man at Reliable Cycle, and so he came to work with us. I'll never forget, he was alone, single, 19 years old, and went to meet his parents, and because I really wanted to hire him and let them know that I was for real and would take good care of him. And Rob did a nice job. He would come into the parts department, and there were parts there that still belonged to 1930 automobiles, and a part of the whole investment of going into business. And I walked in the parts department, and here he's dumping that stuff out. I said, "Rob, what are you doing? You're throwing away the parts." He said, "They're parts for no cars that are on the road today." So he had to get rid of them. Then a sad thing happened to Rob. He had a stroke, a form of stroke, and he lost all power from his waist down. He was totally paralyzed. But and Wayne came to me and said, "Dad, Rob can still do the job. We'll have to do some altering, change the bathroom and change the switches for the overhead doors and all in a write-up area from him. But he can still do the job." And he did. And we were invited, thanks to Rob and his customer satisfaction, to a seminar where Pontiac took, I think it was 12 service managers from the nation, and had a conference and talked with them about how they handle different problems and so on. And Rob and his wife Jeannie were invited to that, and they invited Margaret and I to come along, and it was just a super experience. And Rob did a great job through the years.
And we could go on and on about all the wonderful employees that you had for years, Fred Hanko and the Lohman brothers, and all kinds of lots of wonderful employees that gave their lives to this business, and being part of a great business in the community involves community involvement, and you were involved in a lot of different things. One being the Tulip Time parade, and you gave of a lot of vehicles, particularly convertibles. Here's a 1966 September shot of an old Catalina or Bonneville. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you did with respect to the Tulip Time parade and cars?
I think it was close to 40 years that the mothers of the twins would always come in and ask for a parade car. And they wanted to pull a float, but they want one big enough so it was raining and cold that they didn't have to sit outside with their babies. So we'd find a big station wagon for them where they could pull the float and still be inside on cold days. And it went on for years and years. This picture is when I first became a dealer. I said, and that was in March, I said, in May, we're having Tulip Time here, and it'd be awful nice to have some convertibles. And so they shipped us this nice red Bonneville convertible. It looked like it was 80 feet long, and a couple of Le Mans convertibles for the parade for the first year. And this is a picture of the Bonneville.
My favorite convertible was the GTO Judge, that orange with a wing in the back, and that was I think Mom got to drive that for a little bit. And tell us a little bit about that GTO Judge.
One thing we had to do is Stu got Jeff and his brother Wayne together and said, "Now I'm going to check the depth of these tires, the grooves, to make sure that you're not burning rubber every night on 32nd Street and wearing the tires out." I don't know whether it did it any good, but he threatened them with a gauge.